how do you help navigate it? Because you have the same thing. You have a big personal brand yourself.
Yes, and so what I suggest and what I do and what I've learned to do is I've learned that if I'm going to wait for the openings to happen, for me to do the things that are not work, I'm going to wait for a long time because there's too much work to be done in the day. In other words, there's always more you can do. There's always this thing you can do. There's always that thing. I have a lot of opportunities come my way. I'm blessed in that way, but there's always one more thing I can say yes to. Well, why not squeeze that one in? Do you know what I mean? What I've learned is that that's not going to work. The only thing that will work is if I actually put in my schedule the time to do the things I know I should but never get to.
You're already feeling like you're burning out, and it's still the beginning of 2026. The emails never stop, the to do list grows faster than you can cross things off. And somewhere along the way, your life became something that happens around work instead of the other way around. And here's what no one's saying, but I will. The system is designed this way to keep you distracted, disconnected, and running on fumes because you're easier to control and to manipulate when you're exhausted. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Guy Winch, world renowned psychologist and author of Mind Over Grind. He is going to break down science backed strategies that actually worked, not the just set boundaries BS or just take a day off a week that isn't even part of your reality. No toxic positivity is going on here. This is real practical tools to reclaim your time, your energy, and most importantly, your life. But before we dive in, I need to tell you about something that I only do once a year. My specialty is showing you how to make more money with less of your time. And if you have been in a trap, in a hamster wheel of trading hours for dollars and doing way too many things, and you're not getting that energy exchange back that ends up fueling your passions and the things that you want to do with your life, then this is something that you are going to be beyond excited to join. My 3 days to make bank online famous free live training series is where I'm showing you exactly how to get clients and cash flowing into your business online. Now, this isn't a sales fest. This is not an information fest because you don't need more information. That's going to drain you even further, which we're going to get into in this episode. You will walk away with clear, actionable steps that you can implement immediately. I'm actually teaching you income generating skills that the more you practice them, the better you get at them, and then the more money you make. So, this is no vague theory or circle talk. This is why I only do it once a year. You can join for free, or if you want accelerated results and closer access to me, you can get a VIP ticket by going to projectmewithttiffany.com/make bank. You can swipe up. The link to join is here inside of the show notes, and I've also put it in the description here on YouTube because reclaiming your life starts with reclaiming your time. And that means building a business that doesn't require all of you to make all of the money. And yes, my training series is perfect for you, whether you're starting from scratch or you're decades into your business. Okay, now let's get into the episode because without you prioritizing your life, it doesn't matter how much money you make because you'll be miserable. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? It's your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is the show that is going to help you grow your business, your bank account, that big, beautiful brain of yours, your abundance, your relationships, and everything in between. Well, my fellow crazies, I always love bringing you a psychologist because you clearly need one. And today we're going to focus on something that we all have identified a problem with: overworking, thinking that we're resting when we're really not resting. We're actually depleting ourselves further. And probably we're going to have a few moments where we're getting called out, and hopefully you're going to walk away from hearing our expert, Guy Winch, who's a psychologist, an author of Mind Over Grind. We're going to get into that. You probably have heard of him. He's had 3 viral TED Talks. He's all over social media. And his approach is so great for us because we love geeking out on the science, and we also need a lot of help from having to just do so much stuff in our lives while having all these ambitions. And then now we're depleted, and now we get stuck in a hamster wheel of our own making. And we don't necessarily know how to get out of it, even though we try all of the things. And what I love about you guys that you take such an unconventional approach. I hate, there's nothing more insulting to me than someone telling me, oh, well, you just need to take more vacations or you just need to step away from work earlier. It's not as simple as that, is it?
No, it's not as simple as that at all, because when people, people, when they're ambitious, when they're trying to, as you said, grow their bank account and grow their success and grow their brain all at the same time, there are a few more you added there that I forget. But when they're trying to grow in all those areas, then it's not that simple to step away because you actually want to get somewhere. So how can you actually get to the place you want to get to while also taking care of yourself, doing it in a way that's wise and that doesn't actually put you in that. I love the hamster wheel because I talk about that all the time. Like we put ourselves in these hamster wheels and then we are working so hard and getting nowhere. So how do you get out of that? Is a big, is a big challenge. And so glad we get to talk about it.
I tried truly, when I say everything, every form of therapy, every relaxation treatment, because I was not okay and
Hmm.
nothing was working. So then what happened with me is I just determined that something was wrong with me and that maybe I wasn't type A enough. I wasn't wired like these other people when I was in corporate who they weren't tired from working 12-hour days. And I was completely wiped out. So I internalized it as there's something wrong with me and I just need to like get it together. And then when I transferred to being an entrepreneur, then it got even worse because now you've got the pressure of it's all on you. You can't just walk away. But then see other people, I still get caught up in it. I see other people on social media. Now they have another book. Well, even you looking up all of your accolades, you have all these TED Talks, you do all this stuff. And then it comes back to Tiffany's not doing enough. Something's wrong with me.
And you know what? I'm doing all this stuff and I can look at people who are doing more and go like, huh, they have 5 books. They have 6 TED Talks. I'm not doing enough. You can always look up. What you don't see when you look up is what happens behind the scenes. You see the presentation, you see social media where it's all very curated. You don't see the misery. You don't see the tattered family relationships at home. You don't see the corporate people who are doing coke in the bathroom to stay awake. You don't see, the ones who are actually going to keel over from a heart attack in 2 years' time because that's how they're driving themselves. You don't see that, but that's going on too.
I appreciate you said the Coke in the bathroom because I'm very open about that. In order for me to keep going, and you probably heard of the drug, the brand name is Provigil. It's indicated for like narcolepsy and shift work.
Right, 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 right.
Okay. I was taking pharmaceuticals, legal and not legal. I was using, sugar, substances, anything to keep that adrenaline
Hmm.
going and using that internal drugstore until one day I hit a wall like at 1,000 miles per hour
Hmm.
and I couldn't access that internal like push mechanism anymore. It
Hmm.
was gone. And some people refer to it as burnout, but can you speak to that? Because I know there's a lot of people listening who are either there now or have experienced hitting that wall where it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, but that's what burnout is. Burnout is, I mean, it's fundamentally a state of deep, deep exhaustion. It's not the kind of exhaustion that a good night's sleep or a good weekend off or a vacation, as somebody obnoxiously would point out to you, you know, um, is going to cure. It's going to solve because it's much deeper than that. It's not that you're tired only, it's that you've just become numb to it all. It doesn't matter anymore. You're just going on rote that it's not meaningful, it's not exciting. You forget even why it was so important in the first place. You're questioning all the wisdom and investing so much. I opened the book with my burnout. I got burnt. I'm an overachiever. I got burnt out year one. So there we go. So because one year
That had to be
into
fast.
that's well, look, I mean, as I explained, it wasn't so much that one year, it was the 6 years of graduate school that preceded it. But yeah, I was totally burnt out. I devoted my entire adult life to this one thing, and I had reached it and I had gotten there. I was living the dream and I was miserable and I was confused about, wait, why? This is where I'm supposed to be, like in seventh heaven. What is going on? Why don't I even care about? Why do I think I chose the wrong thing? Why would I rather not do psychology anymore? Now, I love psychology. It's many, many years later now, but that's my state. That's where I was in. I had just hit that wall. Nothing mattered. And again, I took a day off here. I did, but nothing was getting better. And one other thing I'll tell you, Tiffany, guess how often the word burnout was mentioned in my 6 years of graduate school, getting a PhD and doing a postdoc? Zero. We learned zero about it. I had no awareness of what was happening.
So this common phenomenon that we hear all the time, I'm sure if we searched how many times it's brought up in
Yeah,
ChatGPT or Google, I mean, it's
exactly.
tens of millions. You're saying in all of your education, there was not a class on it. You didn't do a paper on it, nothing. It wasn't talked about.
We are going back a ways, and when it comes to my personal education, we're going back to the previous, like to the previous century. But because this was like well, it was the
You're like
90s. Fair enough.
1902.
Not that far back, but it's been a while. But my point is that like we have like 50 something percent of the workforce thinks they have symptoms, not reports symptoms of burnout. Symptoms, maybe not the whole thing. It is incredibly prevalent. How much do they teach it today in graduate school? I don't know. Maybe there's an article, maybe there's but it's not as if people have developed systematically a way to approach it. And what I've found in my work over these past years is that the reason it's still not getting better in the workplace, despite awareness, everyone's talking about it, we're all aware, why does it keep getting worse, is because it's not contained to the workplace. It is related to how you are at work and how you are at home. That those stressors, those stresses, those pressures, they've jumped. They follow us home. They're impacting us in all kinds of ways in all aspects of our lives. And unless we know to close the tap in all those different areas, we're not actually dealing with the whole thing.
Okay, real quick here. Because we've been talking about prioritizing your life, I need to share something with you. I nearly lost my life to burnout. And one of the ways I reclaimed it is I restructured my business so that I could make more and work less. Because if your income is tied to trading hours for dollars, you'll never have the freedom we're talking about here. You'll always get stuck in the grind. And that's exactly why 3 Days to Make Bank Online exists. I do this once a year. It's my free live training series, and it's less than a week away. We start on March 3rd. And this is where I show you exactly how to get clients and cash flowing into your business online without burning yourself out in the process. This is not theory. This is not motivational fluff talk. This is actual strategy that you can implement immediately to build a business that gives you your time back. And even more importantly, your life back. These are live trainings. So you show up, you get the plan, and you walk away and you know how to apply it. But if you miss it, you're going to be waiting another year. You also have the option to get closer proximity and accelerate your results by having a VIP ticket. And you can go to projectmewithtiffany.com/make bank, projectmewithtiffany.com/make bank. Swipe up. The sign up is also inside the show notes here and in the description on YouTube. March 3rd, baby. This is how you start prioritizing your life. I saw several videos of yours probably 2 months ago where you're talking about the difference between recharging and relaxing. And it
Hmm.
hit me between the eyes. And I'm like, okay, I'm guilty of this, not to shame myself, but I don't think a lot of us are aware of the difference between recharging and relaxing. I thought doing it meant doing it right meant I'm sitting there on the couch scrolling. I have Netflix going on in the background. Maybe I'm listening to music. I'm wearing comfy clothes. But that actually never got me anywhere. I could sit and do that for 6 hours and truly never feel recharged. So, can you help us understand what the difference is and what we can at least try to experiment with on our own?
Yeah, and I want to say one thing, Tiffany. If there's any shame to be had, it's on behalf of my profession that has this science and does such a piss poor job of disseminating it, and like you have a few people like me out there trying to get the word out, but like this knowledge doesn't get to people. People don't know about it. It's not your failure that you weren't taught something that we know, because no one taught it to you. What happens is our mind, our unconscious mind, confuses physical exhaustion with mental exhaustion. It thinks they're the same. So when you come home from work and you're very depleted and you feel, I am wiped out, you are mentally, but not physically. You sat all day, probably, and the screens were involved, probably, and so you're not physically tired. You just feel wiped out physically, but in fact, you're not. It's misleading. But because you feel wiped out, you feel like, well, the only thing I should be doing now is resting. And resting is half of the equation. And really, I would say a third, but it's not sufficient because resting won't deplete your batteries a ton, except, I mean, if you're doing a lot of social media and reading upsetting things on the news, it kind of will. But recharging needs to happen. And recharging can't happen on the couch. Recharging is an activity that makes you feel like you, that when you go and do it, it's an effort to get off the couch, but when you get back, you feel like now I have my second wind. Now I'm even more energetic than before I left. The ROI on recharging activities is huge. You expend energy to do them, yet come back feeling more energized than before you left. And it's individual. What's recharging for you might not be for me, but if you're athletic, it's working out. If you're creative, it's doing something creative. If you're an extrovert, it's socializing. If you're a maker, it's making. If you're an organizer, it's organizing, etc., etc. Whatever the things are, and people tend to know that about themselves. When I do this thing, it's effortful, but when I come back, I feel great for having done it, and I feel all recharged. That has to be part of the equation. And just one last thing, quick about it. People say to me, "Well, I'm a musician." And I can't do that anymore. I can't, I was in a choir, I was in a band, I was in an orchestra. And I'm like, you don't need to be in an orchestra. You can't. You can't be that. But you know what you can do? You can go and play the violin for half an hour, a week even. It will bring it back. It will make you feel like you. It'll give oxygen to that part of yourself and your brain that's not getting any. So again, I'm trying to be realistic. We have a lot of work to do. We have busy lives, caretaking kids, work, etc. Find the 20 minutes. You can.
Because my brain goes to when I'm that exhausted, I go to like, I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to do anything. And the last thing I want to do is move my body or go like even a creative project, even stuff that I normally would love. I end up not even wanting to do that because that just feels like too much.
It's a threshold. In other words, yes, because again, your unconscious mind is telling you, Tiffany, you're exhausted. You're exhausted. Sit, for goodness sakes. But it's not the Industrial Revolution. You didn't spend 16 hours over a dye vat mixing fabrics, that's not what you were doing. So you have to, it's a threshold thing. You have to force yourself. And by the way, I have these arguments with myself all the time. I win some, I lose some. It's not about perfection, but it's about not spending all week doing that. It's about 1 or 2 days forcing yourself, and I have some brain hacks that I can suggest in terms of how you force yourself, but forcing yourself to get up and again negotiate. Like, okay, you know what? Maybe not a full hour. How about I do it for 15 minutes? How about I just open the Word file where I'm writing my great American novel and I just, write 2 sentences? How, like, again, just do something because it's the proof of concept, right? It's the giving oxygen. It's feeling that feeling again of how you feel when you do that thing that energizes you. You just need to do it a little bit.
I mean, my therapist recently tricked me into doing a walking session, which, listen, I've had a lot of therapy and I've never had a therapist do this. And I'm not mad at her for it. And I knew what the hell she was doing because I've had so much therapy. And we did a walking session. And my sessions with her at the end of the day, because that's what's best for
Hmm.
me, because I usually don't want to have to go back and work after,
Yeah.
being therapized. And we were walking. I have a beach house. So we're walking at the beach. And afterwards, I did feel like you're saying, I felt energized, which normally I feel like, like I just want to do nothing. I mean, I'm like just a wet noodle. And she was walking to her car and I saluted her. I go, I know what you did. You tricked me and I needed to be tricked for what you just said because it created a little imprint, it felt like, in my brain. Like, oh, that felt good. Maybe we could do that again.
Yeah, and again in a dose. A therapy session is a chunk of time, right? I mean, it's not 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying if it feels if you're sitting on the couch like I can't get up and walk for an hour now, like great, can you get up and walk 15 minutes? Can you walk down to the beach? Just put a foot in the water. One thing I do with myself, like, I need to go to the gym. So here's the deal. The and again, how I fool myself with the same trick all the time is remarkable, but I do. I'll make a deal. I'll say, all right, all you have to do is go to the gym and change into gym clothes. At that point, if you want to change back into your regular clothes and go home without working out, you may. But once I actually get up and get to the gym and change into my workout clothes, then it feels really stupid to just change out of them. I might as well do something, but I
Yeah.
fall for the same trick all the time because it makes the threshold less threatening.
Yeah. For entrepreneurs, where a lot of us now are working virtually, we're working
Hmm.
out of our homes, the
Hmm.
people that work for us are virtual. So now, and even people in corporate, they're working out of their homes.
As do
Now
I.
you've got the home with the work, and I feel it makes it harder to disconnect, especially as an entrepreneur, especially on top of it, because you're a content creator, right? I'm a content creator. And there's never enough content. Content can always happen. And I have a really tough time of separating work and home, especially having a personal brand, because I am the work and the work is me. And how do you help navigate it? Because you have the same thing. You have a big personal brand yourself.
Yes, and so what I suggest and what I do and what I've learned to do is I've learned that if I'm going to wait for the openings to happen, for me to do the things that are not work, I'm going to wait for a long time because there's too much work to be done in the day. In other words, there's always more you can do. There's always this thing you can do. There's always that thing. I have a lot of opportunities come my way. I'm blessed in that way. Um, but there's always one more thing I can say yes to. Well, why not squeeze that one in? Do you know what I mean? What I've learned is that that's not going to work. The only thing that will work is if I actually put in my schedule the time to do the things I know I should, but never get to. So every workout is in my schedule. My evenings in my calendar, do you know what they look like? They're not blank. They literally say things like rest and recharge, or quality time with family, or you get to binge this show and stay on the couch today because tomorrow you're going to be working out and then you have, dinner with a friend that you really wanted to catch up with. In other words, I am putting life into my calendar. We tend to not do that unless it's an appointment outside the house. But I'm putting life in the house in my calendar. I'm reminding myself that I have a limit. Like I will watch a screen. I'll watch a show for an hour and a half, two maybe if I'm finishing at a reasonable hour. But that's it. To me, I've defined beyond that is I'm wasting the evening because I'm not doing something that's recharging or I'm not doing something that's different. I look at screens all day because I'm virtual. So I don't want to spend my, off hours looking at screens again because then my brain is going, hey, what's the difference between what you did earlier and what you're doing now?
Exactly. That's what happens to me is it's like more screen, more social media. Well, my nervous system is like, well, now we're in work mode.
Correct. And that's when burnout happens, right? Because our stress response, and especially people who have PTSD, and especially people who do get activated, your stress response is on high a lot of the time. That's the wear and tear to your mind and body, because your body functions differently when you're activated in stress. Your body, it's cortisol. The GI system operates differently. Muscles are different. Neurotransmitters are different. It's not a state if we evolved to be in chronically. It's a state we evolved to be in moments, in hours, hunter gatherers, the hunt. We weren't hunting all the time. We're gathering and doing not much most of the time. Or even in wartime, there's R&R. The troops get moved away from the front because you can't be that activated. And in the modern workplace, which is our modern battlefield, the workplace with all the tension, stresses, and pressures in it, we are switched on all day, activated all day. Then we get home, then we ruminate about work, so we're activated all the time. Then we're thinking about it. Then we go to bed, then we wake up, rinse and repeat, and we are driving ourselves, to illness, to exhaustion, to burnout. There are all these headlines coming out of China about young executives in their 30s and 40s dropping dead. In Japan, they have a name for it. It's called karoshi deaths, and they're at a high of death from overwork. The World Health Organization says that 750,000 people a year die from overworking, and those are the ones that actually drop dead. Those are not the ones that have all the crap happen to them before they actually drop dead. It is a dangerous thing because there's no rest, and so we have to be aware. I'm being dramatic in this way, but I'm being very accurate. Like our job, our obligation to our mind and body is to allow it time to set and reset in the off hours. So we cannot work all the time without being very risky in what we're doing to our health. And it's not going to get us somewhere quicker, it's going to get us to hit the wall more quickly.
It feels like when you've been in that mode, I was born in that mode, right? Some people in their situation, they watch their parents do it, depending on what generation, the career you can get in. I'm a former TV newscaster. You got rewarded for staying up 24 hours
Hmm.
working. I mean, you got the lead, you got the stories, like adrenaline, adrenaline,
Hmm.
adrenaline. Yet when I hear you talking about making all of this deliberate time that you've put in your schedule, and I do a pretty good job of it now. I could be better. I almost got a feeling in my chest of, oh, how am I going to be able to do that? Like, I don't think I have time to do that. Maybe he has time to do that because he has family that helps him with different things. And then my whole system just started going on all the reasons why that wouldn't be possible for me. And I know I'm not the only person who does that because I have moms listening saying, well, that must be nice. I have three children and I have a
Hmm.
business and my
Hmm.
husband wants this and my mom is sick and I
Hmm.
can't do that. Why do our systems, or whatever the proper term is, why do our brains go to, well, I can't do that?
Look, I mean, a lot of us are socialized, and by a lot of us, I mean women. Are socialized primarily to these days to have to do it both, to have to caretake and be responsible for everyone's needs, and provide and work and have a business and be entrepreneurial and then somehow deal with three kids, etc. I mean, the statistics are, I'm not just, the statistics are that women do, even in heterosexual marriages, women do more of the stuff at home than their husbands, even if they are working both. It's just women tend to have more on their plates. Their work does never end. And so, but again, um, A, you can't wait for that opening to happen, it won't. But secondly, when you are tired, when you are depleted, when you're not recharged, you are much less effective. You might work more hours, but you'll get less done. It'll have lower quality. You're not actually saving time. By taking care of yourself, by finding those 15 minutes here, those 20 minutes there, and letting the world come to an end around you, if it must, let the screaming happening on this side of the house and let the stuff happen on that side of the house. I need 20 minutes for me. By doing that, by giving yourself a little bit more oxygen, by recharging your batteries a little bit, you will be more effective and you won't peter out, in terms of, our cognitive, when I say batteries and bandwidth, it's batteries. It's our cognition is such that it gets fatigued and we start doing poorly. We have more mistakes, we're less creative, our problem solving suffers. It all suffers. So we're not doing better by just running the machinery until it conks out. The machinery is less effective. So it behooves us to do this because we will actually get further quicker by taking those times off. Mini breaks. I have a whole section in the book about mini breaks. 2 minutes, 5 minutes. What we tend to do in those breaks is we get right on social media. And I mean, I don't need to tell people. They already know, like, that's not recharging. That's, you just went from one screen to another and saw your friends on vacation having Mai Tais on the beach. That didn't make you feel better. It just didn't. right? Or you saw another influencer doing this, and look at the great show that I was on, and you're like, wow, why weren't they show and I didn't get on that? Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's not going to make you feel better. What will make you feel better is, and I, by the way, I have trained the algorithm on my social media. If I showed you my search, if I clicked search on my Instagram, it's going to show you two things. It's going to show you puppies and it's going to show you stand up. That's it, because they're short bits and they're cute enough that I can do it in a minute. But I don't even go there. What I do is I will call someone that I really love and have a quick conversation, because that'll recharge me. I'll do some push ups or go up and down some stairs. I'll eat lunch outside to have some nature. Now, I live in New York City. Challenge there, but I'll try and and do it. I'll sit by a plant, whatever. But but I'll try and do something, as brief as it is. A 10 minutes can be good for a power nap if you have where to do it, but don't overdo that, because then you'll get groggy. Like 10, 15 minutes is a sweet spot for power naps. But again, it's like you have to be mindful and curate your day accordingly. Most of us, when we have so much to do, we just put our head down, task to task to task to task to task, and then the day's over. But we didn't curate it based on what those tasks are, what kind of breaks we need in between them. Oh, the 3 hours of really challenging meetings here, let me do something nice over there, because now I'll really need a break. Let me call someone to vent after I have meeting with this person, because this person always stresses me out. Be more thoughtful about your day, that you're actually using breaks to pause, to breathe, to replenish, to recharge, to revitalize. You can do that in very short amounts of time if you're thoughtful.
Versus what so many people say is, once I get through the day, then I'll rest. Once I finish this project, then I'll rest. Is that like, that's a lie?
But how long is your day? It could be 8, 9, 10, 11 hours long. And again, like there are certain companies, I'm not going to mention which, that have their computers, they go to dark after, I think it's 50 minutes or 55 minutes or an hour. Every hour they go to dark. Now, everyone gets annoyed and puts them back on. But the point of it is, it's to remind you now you need to take a break. Again, and that is just science based on our capacity, our attention span. There's a reason, by the way, most meetings are an hour, most therapy sessions are an hour, because our attention span is going to start to wane. And so we actually have to take a break for a few minutes so we can then be refreshed for the next one. And so if you're just slugging it out without a break, or with a break that doesn't do anything for you because you're just on social media, then your abilities are going to take a dive slowly throughout the day, and you're just going to be less productive. It's actually not worth it. And when you take those breaks, when you curate the day and be mindful about it, it takes just a few minutes to look at your schedule and go, I'll do this here, I'll do that there, I'll do this over here. Then you get more out of your day. You're more productive.
Why is the initial response from most people who are experiencing burnout or getting near that burnout zone? The very thing we want is rest. The very thing we want is to not do anything. Yet, when that is given, it's very uncomfortable. It can feel like, for at least I'll speak for myself, it can mimic depression. It can make me feel like,
When? Tell me the situation. What's the
like,
situation that does
here's an
that?
example. I do a really good job of curating my day now. I got caught up in a lot of fear in 2025, and I would say like there was a bit of a workaholic relapse. So then I've really recommitted to curating, and I have more space in my schedule now than I've
Mhm.
had in quite a while. And I start going, am I depressed? I don't feel joyful about this rest. Shouldn't I be more grateful and feel more inspired and motivated because I have more space in my schedule? And it's a weird feeling versus the go, 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 do, hyper productive, on, pittity, all of that. It's a drastic difference.
I will explain it to you, and I will explain you, and I'll explain how to get over it. You are a driven person. You are a purpose driven person. You need to know that what you're doing is important. It's like I'm trying to get somewhere. You have not defined some of the non work stuff as actually very important, as goals to be achieved. If the goal is to actually sit and do nothing for an hour, watch mindless TV because your brain needs that rest and you need to come out of that fight or flight stress response, if you define that that's a goal, that is medically necessary for me, I am doing something valuable, you'll be able to lean into it. But unless you define it that way, then you're actually not doing the thing that you should be doing. And I'm saying you have to define that as what you should be doing.
I like that you said medically necessary. That worked very well and tickled my brain. And it really is medically
It
necessary based
truly
on
is.
what
It
you're sharing
truly
with
is.
me. What are
Yes.
some like warning signs, like yellow flags or even red flags, to help wake some people up? Like, you need a more of a balance here, and not so much like the obvious ones, because there were ones, and I'm curious if you had this when you ended up in burnout. When I look back in hindsight, I could see that my body was giving me some warning signs, but I wasn't taught to know those were warning signs. And I even went and saw medical professionals and they didn't pick up on the warning signs.
They get they don't get taught about burnout either. But here's one. This is an overarching one. But here's a thought experiment. If work was taken away tomorrow for whatever reason, and work just wasn't in your life, um, who would you be then? Who are you
The
if not
first the
work?
first thing that comes to mind is I'm just Tiffany. But not in a bad way. I'm just
Yeah,
me.
but what is your life about? What gives you
I don't
meaning?
know.
What gives you
It would be I
purpose?
don't know. It would be I don't know. Would be the
Most
first
people, it's
one.
I don't know.
And I'm
And even
embarrassed
people
to
with
say that to
families will
you.
be like, "Oh, well, I'm still a mom." And
I'm
like,
embarrassed to say it to you because I don't have children. And so I don't even get to say, right, like, well, I'm a mom or I'm a sister or whatever. My answer is I don't know, but that's very humbling for me to say that.
yeah, but it's for most people that case. Because look, work, and I'm being realistic. When people talk about work-life balance, it's not a 50-50 scale. We spend way more hours at work than we do outside of work. We're very much tilted toward work, but we tilt so much. In the book, I call it amputating parts of your identity off one by one, because we used to be well-rounded people when we were younger and didn't have this much responsibility or obligations kind of on our shoulders. And then we don't have time for this friend, and we don't have time for that passion, we don't have time for that interest, we don't have time for that activity. But those were not just people and things, they were aspects of ourselves that we brought out with those people, with those things that we don't get to bring out anymore. That's the friend I can be so silly and goofy with, but I don't have many of them. And that's the activity that I could, like for example, for me after 9/11, I needed something. I was a therapist in New York. I needed something. So I started doing stand up at night.
Oh my God,
And I would never, I know,
I would love to watch a
oh,
therapist stand up.
I scrubbed that stuff from the internet. I'm telling you right now. But I'll tell you why I did. I'll tell you why I did. Because I never spoke about being a psychologist on stage. I needed to inhabit a different persona. And that persona, when you're doing stand up, was somebody who, was not successful, was a loser but funny about it, was very lewd, had a lot of very, like off color humor. Always I thought it was a clever off color humor, but off color it was. I could say things that I could never say in my professional life. I literally needed to bring out parts of myself I didn't get to express. And I was planning to do it I got sucked into doing it for 3 or 4 years, almost like full time, again at night. And I would be finishing a full day at work and then running out to tell like jokes to drunk strangers in a bar. But it really recharged me. It really was like, oh, this is another part of me I never get. And then when I stopped, I realized I can bring humor into my work much more than I was, and I gave myself more license to do that, which was very useful for my work. But my point is, like, there are these parts of ourselves that we neglect and they die on the vine. And there are parts of us that they make us narrow, they make us two-dimensional. It makes us feel like a work drone because that's all there is. And again, the purpose of us nourishing those parts of ourselves in the off hours, in other things that we do in small ways. Like I can't start doing stand up now. That takes a lot of dedication. But I can write some jokes for some talks that I'm, giving, and that'll get me the feeling again. Do you know what I mean? And that's important. There are ways you need to like water those parts of yourself, give them oxygen, exercise them. And those are doctor's orders. Those are things you need to do to be able to sustain the stuff that you do during the day. That's what the work life balance is. It's in your head, it's about who you are, not just what you do.
I mean, these are the kind of prescriptions that need to be written more so than other prescriptions. I'm just saying. I
I did
mean,
write them, they're in the
and
book.
I'm on prescriptions, and I and I like this other prescription. This is very medically necessary.
I
So
really
going
think so.
back to the red, yellow flags, like the warning signs that you have seen, whether it's in yourself or in patients, that it's like, okay, like we're way off here and we're entering danger territory.
Okay, so one of them is the numbing that comes with the overwhelm of overwork. You just feel a little bit numb about everything. Not totally checked out, not totally burnt out, but it just, you feel numb. I get to a place where if one thing is added to my workload, I feel like I'm going to erupt
That's how I get.
inwardly, outwardly. I am just too irritable about it. Like, and again, that's because my cup is so full. You just made something spill over with that one little drop. It made something spill over, and that's how I feel inside. I have a very outsized emotional response. I try and contain it, but I have an outsized internal emotional response to something that I should not be responding that strongly to. I also have cultivated a support system that will alert me, or I will ask once in a while, "How am I doing? Do you think?" And people will say, "I'm glad you asked because what is it? I mean, what's up here? Like, you don't call as much. In other words, there's certain mechanisms you can put in place to figure it out. But physically, again, it's this fatigue. It can be irritability. We all tend to experience stress in specific ways. Personally, I'm a GI person. I will get GI distress. It might be too much information, but I'm just saying we all tend to get it in different ways. Other people, it's going to be muscle cramps. For others, it's going to be headaches. For other, like we all have our way, symptom of choice. It's repetitive. You probably know that about yourself, what starts to happen to your body when you're starting to go into the red. And that should be a warning sign because that's usually the first thing that happens. For some people, they can break out in acne because they're just not managing things as well. Their back gives out. I mean, I can just give more and more examples, but like physiologically, we all have our go to, the thing that breaks down or starts to first. There's another warning sign because if it happens to correlate with us slogging it out in the office or overworking, take the hint.
Yeah. I mean, something that was a warning sign that I wasn't aware of. Now I'm aware of them, but I wasn't aware before is that I was constantly getting sick. And that was the only time that the old version of me gave myself permission to rest was when I was sick. Well, my guess is what you're going to say about being sick. I'm assuming that's not considered rest. And so I'd get sick, I'd get a sinus infection, I'd catch something every 5 weeks, and I would be down for an entire week, and then the whole cycle would start again.
But this is what I'm saying, like when you drive yourself, that way your body will start to break down because it's not getting the rest. Stress suppresses the function of our immune system to a certain extent because it activates it so actively that it starts to wear down. Because like when we go into battle, your immune system pumps up because it's ready to start addressing physical damage that you might sustain in battle. And this happens hour after hour after hour, day after day after day. It can't create anymore, of this and of that. And like it starts to wear down. And so when you're starting to get sick and you're more sick than usual, for me, when I have the first sign of a sniffle, the first sign of something that the first sign of a sinus thing, the first question I ask myself today, the first one is like, am I getting sick or am I overstressed? And regardless, I need to do something right now to rest and give my body a chance to fight this. So I immediately pivot to easing off. I immediately look at my schedule and shift something. I'm like, okay, I can't go, I can't be at this stress level if I need to fight something off. Stress is the first thing that occurs to me.
The tips that you gave and all of the tools that we're sharing and the warning signs, I know everyone listening hears them. But what I also know is I could put money on it that we would be lucky if even 10% of the people listening followed through immediately with your proven clinical data, scientific based data, will even follow through and make it a conscious effort to do it, even though we're saying like your life is on the line for it. Why do you think that is?
Again, the drive to succeed and the fear of, like taking your foot off the pedal is significant for some people. And for other people, again, women who are working but are also have kids, men who are, have, demanding jobs but have families and parents they have to like, they will look at you and they go, but there's just too much for me to do that I can't squeeze that in. I just want to say something about, that I understand this resistance. I am patient zero for everything that I talked about. I've made all the mistakes. And that's why I was interested in it. That's why I studied it. That's why developed these tools and looked at the research. And that's why I wrote this book. I just want to say one thing about the book. I know people, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to plug, but I just want to, people learn from stories, from other people's experiences. So in this book, there are 5 people I follow throughout the entire book. And when I present these tools and techniques, it's not like, hey, here's the problem, here's the tool. It's how I presented it to those people when they experienced the problem. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like I want people to understand this is how it manifests as a problem, and this is what it's like to try and implement the tools and not get it right, and then have to, like because I want it to be as real as possible. These are 5 people people are going to be able to identify with, but we need role models of people who will come and say like it looks great on the outside, this is what you do, but it was broke on the inside and I constantly have to work at it. It's not an admission of weakness to say I'm struggling in certain areas, and it's not giving up to say I need to slow down in this race so that I can get there first, because you will get there first. You will get there quicker if you actually tend to the machinery. And for those who are just listening, I am pointing to my head as the machinery. Well, your body too, but like your mind, you've got to like take care of it. That the research shows us that when we are overly stressed, we start to self-sabotage in unconscious ways.
Tell me
Self-sabotage,
about
make
this.
make choices that are unwise. I'll give you one very common example. People don't think of it as self-sabotage, but it is procrastination. We will put off the things that are unpleasant for us. What we did there is this task was stressful and it would have taken me 10 minutes to do it. Let's say an hour, I don't care how long. Now I put it off for a day, so I'm thinking about it still. Now I'm thinking about it still. Now it's a week and I'm thinking about it still. I smeared that stressful 10 minutes into 4 hours
Or
unnecessarily,
4 weeks.
or weeks, whatever, but I kept it nagging me at the back of my mind. What what I suggest though is what we avoid when we procrastinate is the emotion, not the task. The emotion, we define the task as obnoxious, unpleasant, stressful, and so we avoid that emotion. That's what we're putting off. You need to reframe those tasks as nuisances, because our understanding of a nuisance is something that we take away, that we take care of immediately. If you have a pebble in your shoe when you're hiking, no one goes, that's an annoying pebble, I'm going to take it out in 5 miles. No one does that, right? If there's a mosquito, you're not gonna. I'm gonna swat that in 20 to 30 minutes. You swat at nuisances. You take care of them right away. So don't tell yourself the task is unpleasant, annoying, stressful, upsetting. Tell yourself it's a nuisance, and by telling yourself it's a nuisance, you'll want to get rid of it sooner.
I love this, seeing as how I have two not urgent medical, appointments that I need to make, and I've been putting them off truly for this entire year. And I know all it takes is a phone call, but I have labeled it as it's another thing I have to do. It's another thing I have to do. And because I don't want to have to do another thing, then I have resistance and don't do it.
I have to tell you something. In my private work, I work with very successful people founders, CEOs of publicly traded companies, some well-known people. I have to ask them. I've learned every single person I work with, I ask this question, which I would find insulting, except that I know that it's important to do. I say to them, when is the last time you had a checkup? If it's a woman, when is the last time you saw a gynecologist? When is the last time you've been to the dentist? And these are successful, smart people. And I can't tell you how many of them look at me like, and we put off medical appointments because it's not just the nuisance of making them. And I have to go there and it's going to take half a day. Who can take half a day? Like it's it's ridiculous, but like there's a huge percentage of cancers that get discovered during routine checkups and when they're more treatable. People die from putting this stuff off. This is what I'm saying about the self-neglect that overwork creates. Like and I was doing the same thing, putting to and I talk about it in the book. Like I had did so much damage to my back. I neglected it for so long. I needed to get epidural shots into my spine. I needed months of recovery. And then 5 years later, I did it again. Turned out the second time was a charm. I learned. But it took that. It took that. I've worked with people who've had very bad medical things happen because they pushed off doctor's appointments. And again, this is when we're talking about medical necessity. That's why I say it's a medical necessity,
Yeah, I see
because
what
we
you're
fall
saying.
into that neglect.
Yeah. And I'm someone who prides myself in honoring myself and caring for myself. And I don't start work every day until noon. And I have all sorts of things that I do to honor myself. Yet, it's still not enough because what it comes back to, and you guys, you can get his book, Mind Over Grind. It's in the show notes. You can swipe up to get it. I put it also here in the description on YouTube for you. And all of the references to his socials are also going to be in there because clearly we all need to read this. we're
But
all we're all unwell in the mind.
let me ask you something, Tiffany. When you need to make the appointment, do you have it in your calendar, call doctor to make appointment?
No, I do have it on a post-it note, but obviously that's not working.
And you know what? You want to hear something really, it's ridiculous, but our brains take calendars very seriously but not post-it notes. Calendars is where you have important appointments, not on
This is
post-it.
true.
Post-it
This
notes
is
are
fact.
reminders. And so reminders can be ignored. Put it in your calendar as a task to be done.
Because you're my phone, right? This is an
Yeah,
important
this
podcast
was in my
interview,
phone too.
right?
Exactly right.
You weren't on a post-it note.
Thank you. I feel,
I never thought of that. That's so simple and
yeah.
genius. So many people, and I do think it's a little overused, but that's a whole nother episode. They identify whether they're diagnosed or they identify as having ADHD or
Hmm.
ADD.
Hmm.
And do you find the people that you've worked with or in the research you've done that there's people who have other comorbidities and other things going on have even a more difficult time being able to separate work from life and they're more susceptible to burnout because of it?
In short, yes, but here's my thought about ADHD and about comorbidity. To me, if you say and you have ADHD, it means one thing to me. It means one thing to me if I'm working with you and you're my client, and it means one thing to me in general. That means, okay, that means that you now have to take extra steps to create more scaffolding around you, to create more structure around you, to compensate for that thing so that you can take advantage of the advantages of that thing. People with ADHD can hyperfocus, sometimes if they're pointing the laser in the right direction. But saying you have ADHD as an excuse for something doesn't work for me. Saying you have ADHD, therefore, what mechanisms do I need to put in place to succeed despite it? Let's talk about that. That works. It's information that should lead you to then set up the mechanisms to manage that condition. It's not an excuse for anything.
I also feel like people, when it comes to a pleasurable activity, a hobby, a craft, a sport, people will not put that in a calendar. It won't make it anywhere because it gets deemed as that's a luxury. You get to do that if you're retired, or if you're someone who has a rich husband, you can go and like play tennis and go to the spa during the day. And that's like this, or you're really, really wealthy, then you get to do those things. Do you think some of this has to do with giving ourselves some fucking permission to enjoy our lives?
When we talk about work-life balance, what does life mean? I mean, life can't just mean shopping, paying bills, cooking, taking care of the kids, duty, admin. I mean, if that's your definition of life, that's problematic. But if I ask people, like, define what life means to you, and there'd better be stuff in there that is not a duty, that is not an admin.
Well, I
And
feel
then,
like truly, I'm outing myself. I feel that I need to take time to define life. I mean, is that a good place for people to start? Because you said a
yes,
lot of people
define
don't have the
life.
answer.
Right, define the and by life I mean again, this is trite too, but when you look back from your deathbed, you're not going to remember the shopping spree you did at, at the grocery store. When you're going to think of the experiences you had, the meaningful things that happened to you, the people that you were really connected with. That's life. That has to be in your calendar. That has to, again, I just think it should be in the calendar because it's important, enough to note, and it'll keep you obliged to kind of see those things through. But these are not privileges. That is what it's supposed to be for. When you see, that expression, oh, I saw you, I saw them on social media living their best life. No one pictured living their best life is at work or shopping for groceries or diapering a baby. Living their best life, they're doing something they find meaningful, rewarding, enjoying, satisfying, one of those things. Where are those in your week?
I
And again,
love
you
that you
can't have a ton
said
of them, have some.
I love that you said the word privilege. I hear this from a lot of people I interview, a lot of people that, I work with and consulting on their businesses. I don't have the privilege to go play pickleball when I want to. I don't have the privilege to just go on vacation even twice a year. I don't have the privilege because my business isn't doing well right now and we're short staffed. And I feel like a lot of people use that word, and that can be dangerous because you're basically saying only if you're privileged do you get to enjoy and live life.
Well, in that case, you're just justifying extreme overwork without actually looking at the risks of doing that. And it's just well, I don't have the privilege of taking time off. I don't have the privilege of breathing for a minute during the day. And I always call bullshit on that. I'm always like, really, you have 15 minutes. You can create. I don't have 5 minutes during the day. I'm like, really, no bathroom breaks for you then? Of course you do. I mean, I don't buy it. You do. The world doesn't come to an end. You're going to be 5 minutes late to that meeting because you needed to get oxygen literally by walking around the block so you wouldn't collapse, or actually you'd be able to pay attention in it. Like, people tend to think the world will collapse if they actually give themselves something. And again, I understand the perfectionism, and I understand the obsessiveness, and I understand the workaholism, and I understand all of that. But to that end, if your goal is to succeed, if your goal is to produce, if your goal is to get the company going, to make yourself a success, you will not unless you find ways to nurture yourself along the way. And I'm being realistic. I'm saying 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 15 minutes. Yes, pickleball is an endeavor. You got to get to a court. The game takes this long. You got to set it up with someone else. It's a thing. So maybe pickleball is not for you. But you know what? Get a tennis ball and smack it against the wall for 10 minutes if you want to practice. Like there are ways to do some of the things because that'll make you feel like I'm doing something. There are ways to feel like that and to give yourself that so that part of you doesn't die. And you have to pay attention to it.
I love that your focus is on defining who you are when it is not work. And if you
Yeah.
were to leave people in this episode with something, whether you're into journaling or writing it down, or you just want to go on a walk and like ponder it, or on your way home driving, or think about it through the day, is there a question you could give us that can help us like get started on defining that, who am I outside of work? Because that's a big, that's kind of really big. I need it in a little smaller bite size.
Yeah, go back to your younger life. Go back to when you were in high school, and hopefully in high school you weren't in one of those schools in which you were like doing
I
homework
mean,
till midnight.
I was a drug dealer in high school, but go ahead.
Okay, but look, no, I'm serious about that. You were a drug dealer in high school, but there were benefits to being a drug dealer in high school because
Absolutely.
you were popular and people all knew who you were and you knew who they were and you got recognition and you felt, like there was belonging there. You got to probably go to some fun parties. There were aspects of yourself that you got to express in doing that. It's not the only thing, but I'm saying like find in that. I'm totally serious.
Yeah.
Find in that the parts of yourself that that brought out, unrelated to the drug dealing. I mean, entrepreneurial you was started early. I understand that, but find what aspects of your personality that brought out when you were in, if you were in college or if after high school when you were working and it wasn't that terrible. For me, my best time working was when I was waiting tables
I
because
loved being a waitress.
when
That's
you
I
finish,
love
you finish. No one is going home thinking like, "Oh, I could have served them better." No one does that. You're actually done with your day. And then once you were done with your day, like who were the friends that you hung out with? What did you like to do with them? What are the things that naturally interested you? What rabbit holes have you gone down on the internet because just something weird and obscure and really not that important just interested you and suddenly you now are like link after link or YouTube after YouTube. Those things will tell you a little bit about what interests you, what parts of yourself get to come out and play when there's no one restraining them. Start there.
I love this. Thank you so much. I appreciate your humor, so I'm glad that you infuse it into your work. Because as a good trauma survivor, I use a lot of humor because it's a
Yep.
beautiful coping mechanism,
It's a lovely coping mechanism
and
because it
it makes
distances you emotionally, it gives you perspective. It's a great coping mechanism.
this so much fun. You made a topic that could otherwise be heavy and maybe even boring. You made it fun, and I appreciate that. I'm so thrilled to be able to read your book, and you guys, you can get that by swiping up on Apple and Spotify. I also put the link in the show notes description here on YouTube. Mind over grind. It's very obvious that you will know by the end of this episode right now, your body is telling you I need help with this. And now you don't have to wonder what you have to do. All you have to do is order the damn book on Amazon. And I don't know if you have do you have an Audible version of your book?
Yes, I did the
Because your
reading. There's an
voice is
audible
very
version.
soothing. I'm sure you've been
Thank you
told this
very much.
before.
Yes.
I could listen to your voice and that would probably regulate my nervous system.
Well, yes, I did the
There's your
audiobook, so you may listen to it. It's around
there's
8 hours
your
of listening.
there's your plug, you guys. Well, thank you so much for your time and your candor on sharing your own experience. For me personally, I just want to say you helped take some shame and self-judgment away from me. Here you're the psychologist and you're an expert in this area and you have to really manage yourself.
Yep, it's an active process to this day.
So the fact that I struggle with it still at times, like that just that just took some of that self judgment away. And I
Oh, I'm
really
glad.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. And you guys take a screenshot of this episode. If you loved it, share it on social media. Tag me at Project Me with Tiffany on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and then I will reshare it and make sure that Guy is tagged so he can see how many of you appreciated the episode and the topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.